Russia intends to supply North Korea with fighter jets in exchange for deploying North Korean troops to Russia.
In an exclusive Euronews interview, Georgia's foreign minister justifies a police crackdown on recent pro-EU protests. France is trying to solve its government and budget crises as the outgoing prime minister holds his last ministerial meeting.
Russia intends to supply North Korea with fighter jets amid growing military partnership between the two countries, according to the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command Commander Admiral Samuel Paparo. Now, he said that Pyongyang would get that in exchange for North Korea deploying troops to Russia to support its war against Ukraine. The Institute for the Study of War says Paparo noted that North Korean soldiers remain in combat zones, likely in reference to the region of Kursk, but are not yet actively fighting. Analysts from the crowdsourced monitoring website Deep State Map reported on the 10th of December that Russian forces had advanced in Sumy region near the border village of Alexandria. Deep State is a mapping project independent but with close ties to Ukraine's defense ministry, widely respected and trusted as one of the most reliable sources of accurate information on territorial changes along the front line. The map changes showed Russian forces occupying around 2 square kilometers in Sumy and advancing in the region of Kursk. Sumy region authorities, including the head of the military administration, Volodymyr Artyukh, rejected the reports that Russian forces had breached the border, calling it, quote, fake and describing them as disinformation. The Institute for the Study of War has not observed any evidence of Russian forces operating in or near Alexandria, but it does confirm that Russian forces recently advanced in the main Ukrainian salient in Kursk region amid continuing fighting in this border area.
Now is the time for these people to enjoy stability and calm, said Syria's interim Prime Minister Mohammed al-Bashir in an interview, demonstrating the intentions of the new leadership. However, the situation remains extremely fluid as there are multiple actors that could play a key role in Syria's future.
Αυτό δείχνει ότι τουλάχιστον σε πρώτη φάση δεν θα δούμε μια παρατεταμένη αστάθεια, αλλά μια προσπάθεια να λειτουργήσει κατά κάποιο τρόπο στη Συρία ως ένα κράτος για να μπει το πλαίσιο. Από την άλλη πλευρά, ο ίδιος μιλά για μια αρκετά μακρομηνιαία, να το πω έτσι, περίοδο μετάβασης μέχρι να δούμε εκλογές στη Συρία. Άρα το αν τελικά θα μετατρέψει, όπως δείχνει, την Tahrir al-Sham σε ένα περισσότερο πολιτικό σκέλος, δηλαδή και ο ίδιος να μετατραπεί από συντονιστή στρατιωτικών επιχειρήσεων σε πολιτικό πρόσωπο, και τι θα σημάνει αυτό, δηλαδή αν θα αναζητήσει συμμάχους, ποιοι θα στελεχώσουν στην οργάνωση εφόσον γίνει πολιτική και ποιοι άλλοι θα μπουν σε αυτή την εκκλησία. Δηλαδή θα δούμε ένα μοντέλο τύπου Αφγανιστάν. Ποιος θα είναι ο ρόλος των δυτικών δυνάμεων και κυρίως αυτών που έχουν αυτή τη στιγμή μεγάλη επίδραση, όπως είναι η Τουρκία. Είναι πολλά τα ζητούμενα, αλλά αυτή τη στιγμή όλα γυρίζουν γύρω από το τζολάνι.
Israel, which has been attacking targets in Syria for months, stated its intention to create a, quote, sterile defensive zone inside Syria's southern border.
Το μεγάλο ενδιαφέρον τόσο για το Ισραήλ όσο και για τις ΗΠΑ είναι να μην ξαναγίνει η Συρία ό,τι έγινε το 2011. Η στρατηγική ευκαιρία για την ISIS ή κάποια άλλη οργάνωση σαν την ISIS να πάρει εδαφική υπόσταση και να αναπτύξει μια νέα τρομοκρατική διαδικασία.
For many of the 14 million Syrians forced to flee their homes since the civil war began, the question is whether they can now return. Brussels has given Poland the green light to suspend the right to asylum for migrants entering the country across the border with Belarus, and points to the weaponization of migrants by Russia as a risk to the EU. European Commission Vice President Henneveer Kunen believes that on the bloc's eastern border the security threat has already moved to the next level, but says cases must be clearly defined.
They may limit also the exercise of the rights to asylum, but it has to happen in very strict conditions and in legal limits. So it means that they have to be truly exceptional, temporary, proportionate, and for clearly defined cases.
The European Commission believes that Belarus and Russia promote the use of violence via migrants. However, human rights organizations reiterated the pushbacks are illegal. Lydia Gall of Human Rights Watch said the pushbacks fly in the face of Poland's duties under national and EU law. In 2024, the arrival of migrants across the EU border with Belarus increased by 66% compared to the previous year. The vast majority of them were on Russian visas.
The European Union issued new sanctions against Russia, particularly targeting the tankers Russia uses to circumvent Western restrictions on oil trade. Oil is a major source of income that is crucial to fund Russia's war in Ukraine. In 2022, the European Union introduced an oil price cap, which prohibited Western companies from providing services to Russian tankers that went beyond this limit. As a way around this, Moscow began using the shadow fleet, which are old uninsured tankers. The poorly kept tankers have obscure ownership and insurance structures that escape the controls of G7 partners. Brussels is worried the poor condition of the ships could spill oil and cause an environmental catastrophe. The shadow fleet has also been accused of deceptive practices, including transmitting falsified data, turning off their transporters to become invisible to satellite systems, and conducting multiple ship-to-ship transfers to conceal the origin of the oil barrels.
German Chancellor Olaf Scholz formally set his country on course for an early election by requesting a confidence vote in Parliament next week. The move comes 5 weeks after his three-party governing coalition collapsed.
Soeben habe ich eine Abstimmung nach Artikel 68 des Grundgesetzes bei der Bundestagspräsidentin beantragt. Damit möchte ich den Weg freimachen für vorgezogene Bundestagswahlen. Werde ich Bundespräsident Steinmeier am Montagnachmittag vorschlagen, den Bundestag aufzulösen.
Scholz is expected to lose Monday's vote since his center-left Social Democrats and their remaining coalition partner, the Greens, no longer hold a majority. If the president follows Scholz's proposal, voters will elect a new parliament on February 23rd. Meanwhile, the Christian Democrats led by Friedrich Merz and their Bavarian sister party are ahead in the polls. The far-right Alternative for Germany has also nominated a candidate. The Georgian government has justified a police crackdown on pro-European protesters with the action of violent groups among the demonstrators. The groups were deliberately targeting the police force, Georgia's new minister Maka Bachorishvili said. Speaking to Euronews in an exclusive interview, she questioned the character of the protests.
Everybody has right to protests, but right to peaceful protests. And unfortunately, I have to say that we cannot really call these protests necessarily peaceful, because the violent groups that were acting with the fireworks, and their target was police forces, and we have around 200 policemen injured, and some of them really received very serious injuries. It is very hard to say that it is peaceful protest. But on the other hand, if there is anything, when we see that police is exceeding its limits of reaction, of course, there should be reaction from relevant bodies, and there is very clear statement from Prime Minister that this kind of actions should be investigated.
The protests are directed against a recent decision by Tbilisi to put EU accession talks on hold. The process was already in limbo after the ruling Georgian Dream Party passed a controversial foreign influence law that EU critics compared to a similar legislation in Russia. Georgia's foreign minister rejected the notion that her government was tilting towards Moscow.
Georgian dream is in power for 12 years now, and in this period, nobody can find anything that this government has done in favor of Russia. But today it is very popular to divide the world into white and black, and if somebody wants to make easy negative impression about somebody, it is easier to claim that somebody is pro-Russian or pro-Putin. And unfortunately, that is the case.
The full interview with Maka Bachorashvili will be available this Friday on our program, The Europe Conversation. The French government under Prime Minister Michel Barnier had its last meeting of ministers on Wednesday before his resignation. Although President Macron promised to appoint Barnier's successor by Thursday, his spokesperson said otherwise.
Le président de la République n'a pas donné d'indication sur la temporalité de son choix à venir. Ce que je peux simplement vous dire, et ce que vous savez, c'est que le président de la République, c'est son rôle et garant des institutions. Et dans ce cadre-là, il cherche évidemment une solution de stabilité.
In the meeting, ministers studied a, quote, special bill set to fix the budgetary choices of 2024 for 2025.
C'est un projet de loi qui permet, pour le dire en des termes simples que vous avez souvent repris, d'éviter un shutdown. C'est un projet de loi qui autorise d'abord temporairement le gouvernement à continuer à percevoir les impôts et les taxes existants jusqu'au vote de la loi de finances de l'année.
The special bill will be examined in the National Assembly and then in the Senate.